Good evening, every pony. My name is EmeraldComet, and I'm here this evening to review a fanfic that actually was requested to me. This fic is called A Nightly Guardian, and is brought to us by Visual Pony. A Nightly Guardian is a whole bunch of things, and centers around Princess Luna telling Lyra stories about a human named Zio that once lived in Equestria, and all the goings-on that happened during this time, and of a romance that bloomed between Zio and Luna herself. It's not every day that someone tells me about a story that I've never heard of before, and just from looking at the story's front page, it actually looked fairly interesting. The ratings were good, the comments were positive, so I was actually pretty excited going in. But unfortunately, after reading it, I can't really find a lot of good things to say about it. Now, that's not to say that there aren't a few good things in it, but in terms of just overall storytelling, I think that this one is pretty weak. But I need to touch on the good things first, because it does have a few good things here and there. For starters, I like the idea that the main character is from a universe where My Little Pony doesn't exist yet. What Visual Pony does with this concept is actually quite clever. He makes it so that Zio helps Equestria advance as a society by giving them new ways of using medicine, new weapons, new forms of magic, and so on. There's a few more interesting ideas that are thrown in, like explaining how different kinds of poisons work and what specific effects they have on the different races of ponies, and there's a really clever explanation on how magic works and why unicorns are the only ones who can use it. There's a lot of clever little pieces like these that are thrown into the story, and I kinda like them. Possibly the best thing I can comment on is the relationships between all the characters. Throughout the story, Luna and Lyra adopt the roles of Twilight and Celestia, with Lyra being Luna's inquisitive student eager to learn more about humans, magic, and Luna's life, and Luna adopting the role of a wise teacher showing Lyra new magic and informing her on the kind of person that Zio was. They share a pretty good friendship and actually work really well together, either pulling each other out of tight situations or being there for one another in their times of need. In addition to these two, Luna and Zio's relationship is also very strong. Despite the species barrier, these two adore one another, literally laying their lives on the line for the other and always sticking by each other. However, even though their romance is strong, I do have a problem with it. The whole thing just feels kind of forced. Let me explain what I mean. Luna and Zio first meet each other in Chapter 1, and then by Chapter 3, they're together. The story doesn't create enough time for them to really get to know one another. We don't really see much of their interactions as friends, and when we do, it's kinda lackluster. They just sort of start a relationship because the writer said so. On top of that, we aren't really given a very clear passage of time on how long Zio and Luna are together for. At best, I'd say Zio is in Equestria for a few months before he and Luna decide to get together. And on top of that, the two decide that they want to get married after spending who knows how many years together. I'm sorry, but I really can't buy that. Couples stay together for years before they get married. You can't rush into this kind of thing. It's something that takes careful planning and decision-making. And I never once heard Luna say, several years after Zio arrived in Equestria, or something like that that gave me some indication on how long they spent together before the wedding. The only major passage of time that we're given is a 10-month period that takes place while Luna is pregnant. Oh, trust me, I'll be getting to that later, but first I need to address a few more things I didn't care for in this story. Particularly Zio and Luna themselves. I really just can't get into these two. Zio is not really all that interesting. He's just sort of a typical nice guy. He doesn't really learn anything about being a better person, he doesn't really seem overly upset about not being able to return home. He's just sort of a basic character, and he's kind of boring. But Luna is even worse. I don't know if it's just me, but I think that she is way too weak in this story. And when I say weak, I don't mean that she's weakly written, I mean she's damsel in distress weak. Let me explain. There are multiple instances when Luna is confronted by assassins, who are either attacking her or her loved ones, and she does nothing to defend either herself or them. In one chapter, she's cornered outside a bar by a bunch of assassins, and she just stands there while they point their crossbows at her. Lady, you're an alicorn! Surely you have some kind of knowledge of a basic teleportation spell that you could use to escape. Or better yet, if you don't, you have wings! There's so many things that she could have done in these situations to help herself and those around her, but she just sits there. Though, in fairness, this kind of behavior only occurs when the story shows her and Zio together. But even when it transitions back to her and Lyra, she suddenly becomes incredibly bland. She doesn't appear especially torn up over her husband's death or her daughter's passing until much later in the story, but even when she gets round to grieving, she acts really strangely. Let me give you an example. In Chapter 7, appropriately titled Mourning, Luna asks Lyra to accompany her to Zio's study, which has been magically locked. She openly acknowledges before she enters that she has not been inside since her return from the moon. Once they get inside, they see that all of Zio's study is in ruins. Furniture is rotted, books are destroyed, all but a few items remain in one piece. But Luna doesn't have a strong emotional reaction to any of it. You'd think that she'd be, at the very least, weak-kneed, or have a few tears in her eyes at the fact that her husband's work is now destroyed, but no! She just looks around casually and then waits till later to get emotionally invested. And again, this is her dead husband's work. All these bottled up emotions that she has should be coming up here, but they don't. Even the side characters are bland. Hardly any of them have any personality, and they're just dull to read about. The only decent character here is Lyra. She's very likable, her excitement over learning in the first few chapters is very nice, and like I said, she has a very good relationship with Luna. But unfortunately, she just isn't enough to carry the whole story by herself. Really, that's all the major things that I have to complain about. But to be honest, it's not so much the major things that tick me off about this story, it's the little things. And the big things are still serious problems which bog down the story, but the little things are just so strange and so nonsensical that they also really hurt the story. Like, for example, why is it that the assassins don't kill Luna when they have her at point-blank range? Why is it that these ponies just want Celestia on the throne and they want Luna dead? Having two strong rulers to protect your land from evil sounds like a pretty good deal to me. There's a moment in the story when Luna and Zio sleep in the same bed, and according to Celestia, this means they're engaged to be mated, but Zio has to bite Luna on the neck to make it official. I don't even... Is that how mating in Equestria works? When Shining Armor and Cadence were going out and Shining gave her a hickey, does that mean that they were engaged to be mated for life? It's really odd. And... okay, I'll address the elephant in the room. How do a human and a pony conceive a child together? Okay, look. I don't care if Zio is a self-insert. I don't care if Luna just has a child so it can die later for the sake of tragedy. I need your story to have some ounce of sense in it. How a pony and a human have a child, which for one is bestiality, and yet Zio doesn't really seem to care, is completely nonsensical. Humans and horses have completely different anatomies. Even if Luna is a cartoon, she still has the body type and reproductive system of a horse. I mean, can you imagine what their kids would look like? Oh, oh. So, yeah, on the whole, I'm not a fan of this one. It's not completely terrible, some of the ideas that it has are creative, and I do like the relationships between the characters. But the characters themselves are boring, the writing is a little clunky, and there's just too many things that don't make sense in it for me to enjoy it. But from what I've seen, I'm in the minority on this one because people really seem to like this story. If you've read it and you like it, by all means feel free to disagree with me. Just in terms of what I'm looking for in fanfiction, A Nightly Guardian did nothing for me. And with all that wrapped up, time for some closing statements. A quick shout out to WolfX1120 who requested that I do this fic, another to FortuneCookie123 who drew this awesome fan art of my OC, and now I'm officially out of things to talk about. I'm EmeraldComet, and I'll see you all next time.